Hi, everybody. Welcome back to New York City. You're watching theCUBE's coverage of AWS Financial Services Symposium 2025. I'm Dave Vellante with Scott Hebner, and we're excited to have Patrick Palomo back on theCUBE, Principal Solutions Architect for Smarsh. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on, Patrick.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be back.
This is my first AWS Financial Services Symposium, I have to say. I've interacted with AWS FS pros, but never in this symposium. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, as we were kind of chatting before we started, it's about double the size that it was last year, so it's pretty exciting to see the growth and attendance just year over year.
Yeah, my quick scan of the keynote this morning, I thought, north of 500, then I was upped it to 700. It's probably closer to 1,000, as we've been talking about. So let's talk about Smarsh. It was founded in 2001 by Stephen Marsh, hence the name. And I'll just give a quick overview. In an industry defined by rapid change and strict oversight, Smarsh sits at the intersection of innovation and regulation. So we're going to talk about how financial services firms are leveraging the cloud, and particularly how you're helping with regulation. But specifically, 2001, that was the time when we were doing all kinds of chatting, and it was sort of unregulated, and there was probably all kinds of information that shouldn't have been floating around. That was kind of the genesis for the company, right?
That's right. It's funny you mentioned that. When I think back, the securities laws that we help customers comply with actually kind of predate the advent of the internet. So if you think what you're talking about in 2001, that was really like a big shift from what was once a inter-office memo became an email. So
right.
Communications really became electronic, and from that time, as we all know, and from emails to chats to now, the way we work is on video conferences and collaboration tools like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So that's the normal now.
And you're still helping with those other vehicles, correct?
Email hasn't gone anywhere. Since you asked, email is still by volume the largest channel that we see with our customers. So it hasn't gone away. I'm sure your inboxes are probably as full as mine are still today. So
it's worse now with AI. But in the federal rules of civil procedure, I think it was 2006, was a catalyst. There was I think it was the Morgan Stanley got the first big lawsuit, and that really put the onus on companies to get their act together. That must have been a tailwind for your business.
Absolutely. It starts with simple record keeping requirements. Our business does that. Those communications with customers are just records of the firm. But since they're records of the firm, then what comes right behind that is potential litigation or investigations, and the need to produce that in court or as part of a regulatory investigation.
Yeah, so that law basically said that electronic records are now admissible. And so at the time, you really didn't have a good way to archive those or even categorize them. So that was a real white space that the industry had to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Hence kind of the founding of Stephen seeing the opportunity to start a business in this space. And that was now 20 years ago. And as you pointed out, the first fines in this space from what was the NASD and NYSE, it's over 20 years ago now. So 2025, it's been a journey.
And you're operating in perhaps one of the most financially regulated industries in the world, right? And the regulations are changing all the time. Then you have the dimensions of technology, like new AI. Regulations are changing all the time, not just in the industry, but like for AI and data privacy across the world. How do people keep up with all this, and as far as the communications are involved?
You bring up a good point. Our largest customer was telling us that they're subject to 256 different regulators across the globe, which is an astronomical number to kind of wrap your brain. That's more countries than there are in the world, if I'm not mistaken. And it does cover a lot of aspects, like what does it mean to be regulatory compliant in a heavily regulated industry with respect to comms. It's, of course, the record-keeping requirements that I spoke about. It's how do you demonstrate a good faith effort to supervise and monitor those to make sure that you're protecting the health of capital markets, preventing market misconduct, investor protection, things like that. It's resiliency requirements, making sure that you are responsive to European requirements around resiliency. So it's really pretty expansive what I see our customers having to deal with in the market today.
Is categorization part of the value you bring? In other words, any communications related to this company or this stock, I want that could be. Is that part of the value that you bring, or is that sort of not your?
No, absolutely. Maybe I'll give you a very simple example. So I mentioned that our customers are obligated to do some sort of surveillance or monitoring of those electronic communications, and you are alerting to your inbox how crowded it is.
Yeah.
So if you asked about categorization, one of the more recent things that we've done is we have some LLMs that are great at categorizing what we call non-conversational data. So if you think of things like newsletters, of course, spam, maybe at a large company, corporate communications, other things that aren't really people talking, it's just information coming into your inbox. We categorize that, and that's an easy way to kind of take those, filter those out, and set those aside so a human being doesn't accidentally have to see one of those triggered for review. So it's kind of an efficiency play and a very simple method of drastically improving the efficiency that compliance teams.
And tech-wise, I mean, LLM's relatively new. I mean, the state-of-the-art used to be other math, like support vector machines, probabilistic latent semantic indexing. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what the state-of-the-art was. Have LLMs elevated that? Have they supplanted that? Do they complement the sort of old math, old but still works math?
That's a great question. Our R&D team, what I like to call our applied machine learning team, I think they're probably the best and most experienced in the business. Dr. Udigmath wrote the book Unexplainable UI. He co-authored a textbook on the subject.
Awesome.
What you're talking about, which I've learned to refer to as classical machine learning techniques like logistic regression, we still think those tools might have a place in the kit, super explainable. But with some of these newer technologies, we were able to see just better efficiency. So it's an all the above approach for us. And the way that we look at our technology choices, it's through a different lens. Last year, we were talking about regulatory grade AI, like what does that really mean? It's important for our customers to be able to explain how the model is arriving at the decision it's making and for it to be repeatable, meaning when you give it an input, it consistently gives an output. So that's how we balance these things when we make our technology choices. But yeah, we've absolutely invested in some LLMs, and our customers are going to start taking advantage of that.
So could you give us an example of where AI has mined, the mix of unstructured communications like voice and chat and email to like actually identify a risk signal?
What you're describing is actually what our customers do every day. Our largest customers will have 8-10 million plus communications come into our platform every day. And overnight, we do analyze all the voice and written communications and surface things for review. So it's a great question, but that is fundamentally every day what's happening. We're trying to minimize the number of things a human being has to review, while also trying to really surface the things that are material, meaning it could actually be something worthy of an investigation. You've identified potential misbehavior or things like that in your business.
What's in scope? I mean, obviously regulatory, policy, is it everything? Any bad behavior of any type?
Give you the greatest hits. So of course, market misconduct. So that would be things like, front-running clients, trades, potential indication of insider trading. It also covers cultural things like harassment or bullying, customer complaints. It's really that full gamut of things that you would, if you were running a business, the things that you wouldn't want to see happening. It does cover a full breadth of kind of human behaviors. And those do align to, in some cases, very specific regulations. I mentioned customer complaints. So of course, there's a very specific FINRA rule around complaint handling. So you see a little bit of both.
So the business case for things like, anything in compliance or, take security, it's risk reduction in expected loss, or, avoidance of fines. And so the holy grail is always, how do you make a business case where it's driving other business value, strategic advantage, competitive advantage? And so how do you think about that? And do you have examples of where customers have been able to achieve that?
We think that really is the future of being successful in this space. You mentioned it's a license to operate initiative for our customers, so they make significant investments in their compliance infrastructure. But the way that we see our customers achieving greater ROI is by getting more use out of it. So it is a simple technology play, like clean up your architecture, streamline it, make it simplified, reduce redundancy. Then it's what you're talking about, like the customer complaints example I gave. You're using an AA model to detect customers complaining. What we hope is that customers will partner with us and kind of flip that around. What about where customers are saying positive things about your business that you could learn from? Are there other revenue opportunities where maybe you're missing? Everybody knows when they executed a trade. What about where you missed? So things like that we think, and that will start to turn how customers really think about that platform and their compliance investment. They could get more out of those.
So with the trend of data residency, sovereignty, regulations that are, like you said before, are getting more and more narrow by country and industry, how does it deal with all that, particularly the data residency issues?
Specifically with data residency, we're tightly aligned with AWS. They're a huge partner of ours. That's why we're here today. Mm-hmm. They allow us to deploy in several jurisdictions. So outside of the US, the most common places we see would be in the UK Brexit, in Frankfurt, in Switzerland. So we address the data residency requirements by deploying where those customers need us to deploy. You mentioned just the wide sweeping breadth of regulation. What we found is our customers have gotten pretty good at risk management, and they try and rise above and come up with a compliance program and framework that works across all of those. Because I mentioned my biggest customer with 256 regulators. You can't have a bespoke compliance program for those, and you certainly can't have a bespoke tech stack for 256 regulators. So you need to come up with a strategy that looks across all that.
We can't help but see what's happening with regulation, with tariffs, the ebb and the flow, tax policy. I mean, look at NVIDIA. It's like, okay, no chips for you. All right, we're going to design a chip that you can sell actually into, certain parts of the world. The AI diffusion laws come out. Oh, you can't sell to these countries. Just yesterday, the administration said, oh, yeah, you can sell to those countries selectively. And so it's impossible to keep on top of. You can't, it's like whack-a-mole. So how does your platform help address that uncertainty? And can customers be anticipatory, with your help?
It's a great question. When we talk to customers, they're fundamentally in the risk management business, not just in the context of their compliance programs, but in their trading and investment operations. So one could certainly argue maybe we're in a time that is unprecedented, but I think our customers have gotten quite good at managing through turbulent times. So we've seen pretty steady hands there. In terms of a platform, we do run exclusively on AWS. So I don't think we run our business in a way where we're worried about procuring hardware because we're cloud native. Mm-hmm. So we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants in that regard to make sure we can keep our platform healthy. Mm-hmm. So it is a very interesting conversation, but we don't necessarily see it impacting our business day to day or even in the short term or medium term.
But your customers have to be agile, right? So the cloud helps them do that, presumably, as opposed to...
No doubt. I think the simple, maybe less sexy things for some folks. We do over 1,500 releases a quarter. So those might be small to keep the platform healthy, to patch for security vulnerabilities, things like that. I mentioned resiliency, which is a huge topic with our customers. So not being attached to legacy infrastructure, having to rack servers, being really efficient in how we deploy code. It's all the really techie stuff that actually turns into big value that allows our customers to move faster.
Right. So when a regulation, changes or is introduced, Europe obviously many times leads, and then California picks it up, and then other states have their own. So there's this bevy of regulations that you've got to accommodate. I'm presuming that you have process frameworks, technology to allow your customers to be in compliance with those various regulations. How does that? Can you describe how that all sort of works in your? Is that like a superpower that Smarsh has in order to inject those changes into the system and so that your customers can respond?
It's a good question. We talked about before, our bread and butter and our legacy is in regulated financial services. So our customers do get the benefit of the way that our internal staff scans the horizon and tries to anticipate regulatory change. So you have what Smarsh is doing in terms of coming out with the next scenario, the next algorithm that will be responsive to a new regulatory change. But one practical example might be cryptocurrency, for example. So that wasn't something that 10 years ago you'd have been talking about. So as that comes into the fold, we'll help develop logic that could help detect potential risks around crypto. The other way we do that is we try and make our platform as flexible as possible for our customers so they don't have to wait for us if they need to respond to something quickly. So
just a scenario here on just maybe the future, right? As we move into agentic AI. So if you're a human being and you're using ChatGPT today, for example, to get information, that's being tracked by you guys, right?
Yes, we do have a partnership there where we can capture and retain the prompts that people are using with those types of platforms. The The rule book is still being written and interpreted around like what does that mean for compliance programs. But I guess that's an example of where our customers expect us to be lockstep, to have the technical capability today, and we do have that today, to be able to capture certain things like the use of Copilot in Microsoft Teams, ChatGPT, like you mentioned. So that's data that we can bring into our platform as customers get their hands around what that means for their compliance program.
What happens then? So that's sort of the world today. The world tomorrow is going to be, I'm going to interact with an agent. That agent's going to go talk to 5 or 6 other digital workers. There's going to be a communication stream, and then something's going to come back in terms of a judgment or some kind of decision or plan. Where do you draw the line? Is it human to human surveillance, or what? You get these digital workers, agents hanging out there.
It's a great question. What we practically see with our customers is the first step is create a mechanism to review and assess the different use cases. So what you're describing, we haven't seen customers in regulated financial services yet.
Right.
They're not prepared to have agents or digital workers interact directly with customers yet. There's kind of a human in the loop in a lot of use cases. But then what you're describing is really as the line blurs between what might be a human worker and a digital worker. You would suggest that if a digital worker is communicating about your business, that communication is the same as a human being, and you would expect to retain that as a record of the firm and monitor that in the same way.
How do I engage with you? Is it a SaaS platform? I license? Is it how does it all work?
We are a B2B SaaS platform. So that's right. Our customers don't manage any infrastructure. Yeah. We deploy natively to AWS. It's all infrastructure as code. We deploy in as little as 48 hours. So that's really how we do it.
And it's a consumption-based model, pricing model?
Yes, correct. If you're asking in terms of a go-to-market, based on the number of employees that you have that need record keeping or e-discovery or surveillance or monitoring capabilities, that's how we would charge our customers.
So,
a number of those people.
You're a solutions architect. Explain how that role. What are the activities within this world of compliance and risk management? What is a solutions architect architecting?
So for me, I spend most of my time connecting business problems with our technology platform. So maybe an example would be helpful here. Yeah, we still have a lot of conversations around our customers' mobile strategy. Should we be corporate owned or BYOD? We do get questions about what does it mean as we roll out something like Microsoft Copilot for Teams. Could you capture that? We're expanding our business in a way we need help with voice recording, capture, or monitoring.
Right.
So I can just kind of connect what they're trying to achieve with their business with a piece of software that Smarsh can make available to them.
I got it. So here's what we're using. Here's where we think there's risk. How can you connect into your platform and mitigate that risk?
Yeah, or map business process. So for example, our larger customers might have distinct compliance processes for their wealth division that might be different from their capital markets division. Mm-hmm. So where I can help is just understand, like, how would you practically leverage our technology to get a business process executed?
So agents, to your point, they're a wonderful, chaotic potential nightmare for customers, which would be music to you.
It's a theme.
Yeah, right. But I mean, there's a company like Smarsh. I mean, that's a real opportunity for you, I would presume.
We're very much on top of it and in constant conversation with our customers to make sure that if they need us to be capturing and monitor that we have.
There's APIs to the platform too, so I can if I build my own software, I build an agent, I can call into the platform and...
Yeah, that's a great question. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible for our customers to get data into the platform and get data out of the platform for a myriad of use cases. So some of the stuff we're talking about with digital workers or agentic technologies, if you take a step back and just think of those another channel of communicating, like email, like chat, you can add an agent to that. And if you're using something that's on our menu, Smarsh can handle it for you. Or if you have something bespoke, you can use our APIs and we'll get into the platform in the same way.
Because these agentic frameworks, part of it is the ability to call external tools and APIs. So it sounds like your platform is one of those things that can be called if I want to have that sort of function built into my agent.
We invest heavily in our API strategy. We just appreciate that within our customers' architecture, we need to be able to speak upstream, downstream, and everywhere in between to different applications for different use cases. So it's a big part of our strategy.
What's a wheelhouse customer look like for you, like an ideal customer profile?
We do service the entire vertical. So it's really anyone in regulated financial services, buy side, sell side, small.
Spectrum of size, yeah.
The entire, so we, without exaggeration, we have some of the largest banks in the world. And we also service if you guys wanted to go out on your own and start your own RIA and a brand new company. So we do service the entire vertical, including insurance, buy side, sell side capital markets business, hedge funds, all of the above.
Awesome.
Would you sell outside financial services, like life sciences?
We do have some customers. We think that the next place our business will continue to grow. We already have some customers in healthcare. Would be other heavily regulated institutions like what you're talking about.
Those financial services, healthcare, government, those are the big
anywhere where you
three.
see material litigation or need to keep records. That's where we've seen opportunities for growth.
Tech, maybe soon. With all the tech lash. What would you like to be able to say at Financial Services Symposium in 2026? This is my Savannah question that you can't say today.
Love that question. We were talking a little bit earlier about like how do you see your customer really leveraging your platform outside of regulatory compliance to truly get insights into their business. So when we come back next year, I'd love to give you a very specific story of a customer that's done exactly just that.
Awesome.
So write it down.
All right.
Hold me to it.
We'll be here next year too, I hope. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE again. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you for having me.
You're really welcome. All right, keep it right there. This is Dave Vellante for Scott Hebner. You're watching theCUBE at AWS Financial Services Symposium from New York City. We'll be right back right after this short break.